Want to hear some good news? The ancient Greeks also had a really good grasp on the laws of physics. They knew that heavier objects fell at the same rate as lighter objects. They also knew that if you removed the forces that make an object float, like a boat or an airship, then it would sink in water just like a rock. And they even knew that if you dropped a cannonball from a high place, it would fall pretty fast. You don't need to be Greek to know that one. But the thing they didn't know was whether or not cats could smile. I don't know if you've ever seen a cat smile before, but when they do, it means they're either trying to kill you or bewitch your children. Or maybe they just really like your new shoes. The Greeks weren't sure which one, and so they created an entire religion around the possibility of smiling cats. It was called feline philosophy. Now, this wasn't taught in the great halls of Athens, but rather from house to house by traveling philosophers who were paid in fish. There are only 3 things that I know about feline philosophy. First off, they believed that every human could be reincarnated into a cat after they died, and that's why cats always seem to have 9 lives. Second, they believed that each time a cat smiled, it stole a piece of your soul. And finally, they believed that every cat has an evil twin living inside of them, and that twin takes control whenever the cat sees a human smile. Now, the Greeks couldn't figure out if cats actually did smile, so they took matters into their own hands. By the year 300 BC, there were smiley cat statues all across Greece, and humans would stand next to them and try to figure out what they were thinking. One day, a young student named Aristarchus approached a statue of a cat that was clearly smiling. He stood staring at it for hours, and eventually he heard a voice in his head say, "Get behind me, you lowly human, and let the great Lord Smilestuffin take over." Aristarchus jumped back in surprise and said, "Who said that?" And the statue replied, "I did, silly human. I am the great Lord Smilestuffin, and I have come to steal your soul." Then Aristarchus punched the statue as hard as he could, and the statue said, "Ow! Are you insane? I am a god." And Aristarchus said, "If you want me to believe that you're a god, then you gotta punch me back twice as hard." So the statue did. And Aristarchus said, "That's what I thought." In fact, that's the story that all of Greek history was built upon. And if that's the kind of stories that you like, then you're in luck because the rest of this episode is devoted to other crazy Greek myths. Like, did you know that Hades once tried to recruit Heracles to be his son? No. Well, let me catch you up. Once upon a time, Hades was looking for a new driver for his chariot, and he asked Heracles if he wanted the job. Heracles turned him down, though, because he already worked as a slave in another god's garage. But Hades kept coming back day after day with the same offer. And finally Heracles snapped and asked, "Why do you want me to drive your chariot anyway? Is it because I'm the strongest person in Greece? Or is it because I have the coolest hair?" And Hades said, "No, none of those. I want you to drive my chariot because I know you have a secret desire to travel through the underworld every day and hang out with the ghosts of dead babies." And Heracles said, "Well, yeah, that is true, but I can't tell anyone else that." So Hades made him swear an oath, and then he started working. For about a week, everything went well, and Heracles really enjoyed driving his new chariot. It was much nicer than being a slave. In fact, it was so nice that Hades decided to promote Heracles and make him the god of the underworld. "What? No way," said Heracles, "but you're already the god of the underworld." "Yeah, but I'd like to keep the job open, in case I ever get bored of it again, and decide to go back to being a titan, or whatever." "Oh, I see," said Heracles. "So let me get it straight. I work in hell for 3 weeks to get promoted to hell, but the only difference is that I'll have to wear pants." "Yep," said Hades. "That's basically how the system works around here. Do you want the promotion or not?" And Heracles said, No, I think I'll just stick to driving." So, anyway, Heracles kept working until one day Zeus got jealous that his son was hanging out in hell more than he hung out with him. So Zeus recruited all the other gods, and together they chained up Hades and pulled him away from his chariot, which meant that Heracles had to find a new job. And the only thing he was qualified for was being a hero. So he traveled all over Greece helping poor villagers and slaying monsters. One day he met a woman who had been cursed to live as a rock monolith, and Heracles told her that he'd break the curse if she became his lover, and she agreed, but only if he promised to never tell anyone that he slept with a stone, and he swore an oath on Olympus to keep her secret forever. Now, this myth doesn't end there, because later on, Heracles found a new love interest, and he boasted to her about how many beautiful women he had slept with, and he even brought up the time he slept with a stone. Now, the new girlfriend didn't believe him, so Heracles took her to the Oracle of Delphi to prove it. But, as soon as he opened his mouth to speak, a voice boomed from above saying, "Heracles, you filthy liar, I am the spirit of this prophecy, and you will never win a race again." Now, Heracles spent the rest of his life trying to break that curse, but it was no use. There were ways to cheat, but no way to make him run fast. And that's why, when he raced the Ethiopian queen, he had to call in a favor from the god Hermes. And that concludes this episode of Greek mythology. Unless, of course, you want to hear about the time Heracles wrestled a centaur and accidentally unleashed the most dangerous creature in Greece. If you want to hear that, let me know by liking and subscribing. Thanks for watching.